My name's Stephen Brend. I'm the Manager of Conservation Science at the Western Port Biosphere Foundation. The Biosphere Foundation is an environmental charity that looks at how people interact with nature, and we try and get the best outcome for both nature and for people. Between 2023 and 2025, the Western Port Biosphere Foundation delivered the Blue Carbon Planning Project, which was funded by the Victorian State Government. The overarching aim of the project was to make sure that Western Port continues to act as a carbon sink that draws down carbon from the atmosphere and not a carbon source where it's releasing carbon.
Western Port is thought to be one of Victoria's premier blue carbon sites. Blue carbon ecosystems are aquatic ecosystems that sequester carbon from the atmosphere into the soil. There are three main types of blue carbon ecosystem in Western Port. The first is seagrass, which is a grass that grows in the water. Generally, it's inundated most of the time. It's around the low tide level or a bit below. The next one is mangroves. They exist around the mid-tide level and perhaps a little bit higher. That's a shrubland of small trees that can form quite dense forests. Then above the mangroves, in the zone that only gets inundated by the tide maybe once a month or less frequently, is the saltmarsh, which is a low, flat shrubland of small succulent plants and shrubs that are very salt tolerant. And they've got a nice sort of greenish reddy hue, and you often see them in between the mangroves and then the shrubs and trees of the terrestrial vegetation. So our studies found that the erosion at Lang Lang is contributing around 6,500 tonnes of fine sediment into the Western Port, as well as around 280 tonnes of carbon into the atmosphere. Now, to put that in context, 280 tonnes per annum is about the emissions you'd expect from approximately 350 cars in Australia. Or in terms of blue carbon ecosystems, to absorb that much carbon, you would need around 150 hectares of mangroves or around 400 hectares of saltmarsh.
As we look to nature-based solutions, mangroves may be one of the best solutions to stop coastal erosion.
We're here down at Queensferry where we've just completed a very large mangrove project. We put 4,500 mangroves in with these structures in to help protect them from the wave action. We're hoping these structures will help with erosion and have a much better outcome than just planting mangroves alone.
This is a biodegradable bamboo structure. We're using these in our mangrove planting this season as a wave barrier and a protector of the seedlings. This is made out of mainly bamboo with some wire to hold it together. It's also got a wooden plug at the bottom to ensure that the sediment stays inside the structure and it doesn't blow out of the ground. One of the reasons we're doing this is for erosion control, and the second reason is for, I guess, habitat. Around here you can see behind the mangroves there's a beautiful, just smooth transition to the saltmarsh, whereas if you look over in the distance where there's no mangroves, it's a really steep drop-off. We're hoping that we're going to create the environment so the mangrove seedlings can establish past the 2 to 3 year mark. This is going to keep them safe from the damaging winds and waves that come through this area, and hopefully extend the mangroves that are already existing further out into the bay.
With salt marshes, we erected fencing to keep stock out or to prevent four-wheel drive access, which obviously damages the marsh. With seagrasses, the picture's very mixed. We're not really sure whether grasses are expanding or contracting in the bay. So as part of the project, we supported a monitoring program to find out more about what's happening with the seagrasses. The project was a success. We know what works, we know what has to be done, but the challenge is we need to scale it up. We need to protect even more salt marsh. Seagrass restoration, we need to start thinking in terms of hectares. The conclusions of the BMT study are quite stark. There's only really two options for dealing with the coastal erosion. The first is facilitated inundation, where you remove the levees and you let the tide come in, and this stops the waves crashing against the cliff face. The second, a living breakwater, a kilometre-long structure about 100 metres offshore, which will absorb the waves' energy, but also naturally trap sediment, which will allow for the establishment of mangroves. These are big challenges. They're going to be expensive, they're going to be difficult to undertake, but we need to do them. The climate is changing, and the blue carbon ecosystems are so important for the carbon they sequester and the services they provide us.